Welcome to the Leadership Expose podcast. This podcast is for leaders at diverse levels and organizations around the world who are seeking to scale and transform their leadership to level up their business and to create an impact in the lives of people all around them. Business topics, trends, innovation, and the intersection with leadership is the focus. We enable success. I'm your host, Stephen Paul. In this episode, we meet an entrepreneurial business leader who is an award-winning marketer specializing in social media marketing, acquisition, and brand strategy. Amongst several achievements, he has helped scale multiple e-commerce businesses, leverage multimedia strategies to drive acquisition across global markets. He has managed some of the biggest social media communities on the planet and leverage these channels to engage and influence decisions. He's also a public speaker and a brand consultant. We're joined by Tim Hyde. He's the CEO and founder of TWH Media, and today we will learn about his journey, but some of the interesting aspects of multimedia, social media, and digital marketing, and why that is important for businesses and their growth. Welcome, Tim. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much for the intro, Stephen. That was, extensive. Makes me feel like I have actually done some stuff with my life. But lovely to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with yourself.
Wonderful. Tim, where are you based?
I'm based in Cheshire, so kind of near Manchester, northwest England. Not particularly sunny up here, but it's been good from a social media perspective, I have to say.
Wonderful. And Tim, do you travel a lot within the UK or even globally?
I travel a lot. We've got a lot of clients kind of all over the world, a lot, West Coast, East Coast in America, had clients in Singapore, quite a lot of clients in London. Definitely enjoy traveling as well. And I think from a, passion perspective, traveling is absolutely one of my passions, experiencing, new cultures, new places, different ways of kind of doing things is definitely when I'm at my most happy. So it's normally for work and pleasure.
They always say about marketing and social media and multimedia professionals, they always have the best of fun.
We definitely try. Where some people have to work very hard, and I like to think I'm one of those, but we certainly do enjoy it at the same time. And I think just with the internet, with social media, the world has got a lot smaller, and it's crazy to think that someone in northwest of England can be working with brands all over the world, being paid to kind of consult all over the world and getting that opportunity to travel. So I've been very, very lucky to kind of be at that kind of hotbed, I have to say.
Wonderful. Tim, we're definitely interested to hear about the multimedia and social media aspects, but tell us your journey towards all of that, your personal journey. Give us a bit of a briefing on that one.
Absolutely. So I think I'm very averagely smart, definitely not particularly academic, but always, I'm very much into sport, big football fan, played lacrosse, big rugby fan, cricket fan, golf. Do you know what I mean? I'm not just into football, I'm very big into sport. And I always wanted to be a journalist. So straight after doing my A-levels, I basically did my NCTJ, so your National Journalism Exams, worked basically for free while they paid for that course. And I was just really, really lucky. My first job was at the Lad Bible, where I was the sort of 11th member of staff there, and basically had the opportunity to really see the power of social media firsthand. Certainly at the time, I think I had Facebook and Twitter, but used them kind of how all my friends were, uploading photos and not thinking too much of it. But at Lad Bible, we were super fortunate to have this platform, this voice of being able to share content, make people feel, and therefore then run marketing campaigns through that channel. So it was really that opportunity at Lad Bible where I went, oh wow, social media is amazing and the power it can have. And from there went to work for a marketing agency called Social Chain, which it was at one point one of the biggest social media marketing agencies in Europe. Worked with a lot of the biggest brands in the world, DreamWorks, Spotify, Amazon, Google, Apple Music. The list really does go on. And there we just really enjoyed being able to sort of influence, engage, distribute content, build communities, all leveraging kind of social media and integrating those kind of strategies with brands. And at its best, absolutely help brands make, millions in revenue and reach billions of people, which was very exciting. And then following that, for the last 5 years, I've run my own kind of mini social media marketing agency. I think I'm the biggest, if not one of the biggest, independent spenders on Facebook ads in Europe. Spent well over kind of 100 million on performance advertising, helped scale a few businesses. I've worked with a lot of different startups, taken equity in a few of those as well. So yeah, that's my long-winded kind of intro, and hopefully that gives some people some context.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful, Tim. And let's just delve a little bit more into the work that you're doing as an owner of your own company. So tell us a little bit more about the types of businesses you mentioned, different types of companies, whatever state or rather is it more with startups, or is it growth stage, or does it matter?
Oh, good question. I suppose work with lots of different verticals and lots of different shapes and sizes. I think the typical engagement and what people think of when they think of performance advertising, and certainly Facebook ads, is your direct to consumer e-commerce stores. And absolutely, we work with a lot of them and have done over the years. But I think for me, what I'm kind of passionate about is how these paid media channels can drive business, or at least drive awareness for lots of different types of businesses. So whether that's been for VC funds, for accelerators, for property businesses, for businesses where you acquire land and kind of new technology within that, as well as, I put together the EMEA marketing strategy for DreamWorks and how they actually use, paid media to amplify trailers and various different content across, their social media channels. So I like to think it's fairly diverse. I think post iOS 14, which was, a big kind of privacy change that happened last year, the biggest thing is kind of budget dependent. It has got much more difficult to advertise on these channels with smaller budgets, to kind of get those minimum requirement of learnings. It is basically requiring a lot more budget. So that's basically where kind of conversations are now, rather than, no, we don't work with a specific type of vertical or size of business. Just unfortunately, the barrier to entry has got a bit higher with, needing a bit more to spend, unfortunately.
Yeah. And Tim, are you finding businesses recognizing the need for social media, or are they all about, well, we have our own ways of marketing, and social media is still a secondary item? What kind of trends are you seeing with business owners or companies?
Yeah, it definitely depends. I think there's still a few traditional industries, shall we say, that are still averse to social media and certainly advertising on social media, just because, for them anyway, the risk outweighs the reward. And whether that's from a compliance perspective or, just the budget needed, really, that they're not willing to kind of invest in that channel. But I think there has been a narrative shift, certainly over the last sort of 2.5 years, where, I don't have to explain really what Facebook ads are or, what TikTok advertising is. People are aware of that kind of channel and its importance. And I'd say really over, since probably just before COVID, because of, things like iOS 14 and the channels becoming more complex, there was probably a point, and certainly since I've been in business, where the self-serve advertising platforms, people were doing at least a decent job themselves. Whereas because it's, not unfortunate for me, but unfortunately for business owners, it has got trickier. There's more changes, there's more gray area. Actually, a professional within that space is kind of more valuable, if you like, just because it's got so much tougher. Kind of gone are the days where your mum and dad, local store, family business can run some ads on Facebook and be profitable. It does take a little bit more tinkering and a lot sort of harder work on the creative side, which is good for me in a sense, but, it's kind of a shame that post iOS 14, the guys that have been screwed, if you like, are certainly the SMEs, which, is pretty unfortunate.
So when we talk about social media, sometimes, me including, until a couple of years ago, was more focused on Facebook or Instagram or some of those platforms. But social media is actually much more than that, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. I mean, whether you're able to build kind of micro communities, engage with people on a personal level, start businesses with people by being able to connect on, kind of similar topics. social media can be incredibly valuable on a personal and on a business level. I think where the bang for your buck is in 2022 certainly is TikTok. I think if you're willing to create video content and jump on trends and leverage the power of, their incredible / scary algorithm, that's where the millions or the thousands of views on content are really coming from. And actually, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter are still valid channels and are still phenomenal what they can provide a business, but they don't necessarily have the upside of something like TikTok, where there is, that phenomenal level of discoverability or opportunity to go viral, which is why we're seeing a lot of creators move to that channel.
Yeah. So Tim, if I'm a company or a business or even an individual looking to leverage your solution and the ways you've innovated in your space, how would a conversation between you and I sound like?
Oh, I think it would depend, whether it's a kind of product service that you're offering. I think, also understanding what that kind of timeline looks like as well. But I think, Facebook has flaws, absolutely, but it still can be a great driver of business, a great driver of leads, and a great amplifier of, information. And I think marketing in its truest sense is really kind of clearly communicating what that product or service is and being able to basically accumulate digital touch points across, Facebook's ad network, Facebook, Instagram, and their audience network is still very valuable and still can, generate great results. If you're looking to go, right, I have a certain budget and I need to absolutely maximize that, I think more experimental channels like TikTok, whether that's organic TikTok, paid TikTok, certainly have that kind of, high upside, that high ceiling, but it really depends on, what kind of KPIs you want to get out of that engagement and then trying to adjust from there, because all businesses are different, all budgets are different, and understanding how to, leverage each individual channel is still, really important.
Yeah, and just probing slightly here, what sectors do you find the appetite for this innovative social media?
Oh, good question. I think, anything that's direct to consumer products, I think those people are looking to aggregate any gain that they can have. I think they're in the sort of FMCG world and certainly in retail, they're going up against big players, and social media, whether it's the cost and the barrier to entry has allowed them to even, get off the ground. And actually, a lot of these people were the first movers on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube. And so when newer channels come out like TikTok, they've been rewarded for being first movers in the past. And so it's kind of inherent that they'll try that again. I think there's also a conversation to be had about vertical specific. Do you care if a real estate agent is on TikTok? Maybe not. However, at the same time, you can also have the conversation that it could be actually a differentiator to the new 18 to 22-year-old buyer that isn't, as fussed about Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. So I think there's justifications for how different businesses and people are using channels, but I think it comes back to, just reverse engineering. What do you want to get out of it? What type of audience is actually on that channel? And, are you proud of, or is that content that you're putting out there truly valuable? And if it's not some of those things, then that's when I'd try and steer someone away from it.
Do you have those initial conversations with the executive or with the board of that company, for example, and determine what they're looking for? Or do you just propose during those conversations as well?
I think so. Yes. I mean, yes and no. Sometimes it's budget restrictions, it's creative restrictions, and as I mentioned before, compliance. But I think you always want to give people the opportunity, and certainly it's where we've seen massive growth. So, that conversation is not redundant, even if someone isn't kind of that keen. I think it's, for me, my style of communication is, put the facts in front of someone and almost let them choose. I'll potentially try and influence that decision because it's what I'll feel. But at the end of the day, it's a big time investment for people to take on these channels. So, at least, highlighting and educating people on the upside of some of these channels is definitely my job.
Yeah, I've made a mental note to get in touch with you to understand a little bit more about this for my own personal needs and my own business needs. But Tim, tell us, can you share a story or a experience that comes to your mind from a time when you're working with a for other companies, or maybe as part of your own company that resulted in a high or positive outcome?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I've been pretty lucky. So there's been many, whether it was sort of winning some of the big awards at Social Chain when there was only 11 or 15 of us, and, going up against some of the big industry heavyweights and not even thinking that we'd come close to being shortlisted, never mind winning awards. So there's some really fond memories that I tend to look back on. I think on a personal level, whether it's sort of scaling a couple of businesses and using paid media to really build a brand online, that's been, incredibly rewarding. Those kind of real business case studies are pretty cool compared to some of the vanity driven case studies that we've done more in my kind of social media days at Lad Bible and Social Chain, where you are talking about millions and billions of views, which, sometimes you can't even kind of comprehend. Whereas being able to kind of say we took a business from 250K a year to 10 million a year in basically 24 months is something that I'm very proud of, because that's a real business case study. That's real growth and is meaningful and has changed founders' lives. Whereas, accumulating a lot of eyeballs on a bit of content is definitely a lot easier than basically scaling a business.
Yeah, wonderful. And can you share, a leadership lesson or an experience that you've learned which transformed the way you lead and operate and benefited others as well in your company or even previously?
I think there's so many. I think for me, I was sort of always taught, and so Solly, CEO at Lad Bible, always told us to sort of be a sponge for information and really take in what people say. And I think, my biggest advantage in this industry is not only some of the case studies behind me and the businesses I've worked for, but, Steve at Social Chain really gave us a peek behind the curtain at, how to conduct yourself, how to work hard, how to, focus on self-improvement, and actually by, basically having some of those foundations, being good to people, being polite, a lot of basic things can really be a differentiator, when you get into a boardroom or when you get into a pitch. So, I have to say there's so many, things that have been impactful in both business and personal life. Steve always used to talk about that happiness is a choice. Now, that can sound really naive, a breakup, a death in the family. You can't just decide to be happy. But I think trying to frame your perspective on situations can be really valuable and how you kind of lead. But one of the things that I think I've really sort of doubled down on more recently is, being honest and upfront with people tends to pay dividends later down the road. And actually just saying, if you don't know something, you don't know. Especially in emerging industries, whether you get into, Web3, NFTs, the ever-changing landscape of social media, being honest enough to go, I don't know, but this is my opinion based on this experience, I think is really refreshing, because there's so many gurus, fake it till you make it entrepreneurs that constantly think they have an answer. And actually, I think it's really refreshing when someone goes, I don't know, however, this is my opinion based on X, Y, and Z. And that's something that I've been probably preaching over the last 6 months, because you can't be an expert in a lot of these areas just because there is so much change. So yeah, just on it, good, honest people tend to be the best people to kind of take advice from.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I feel it's also an intersection between courage and authenticity, as in like the courage to either refrain from just going out there and saying what you think it is, but also being authentic about, like you mentioned, you don't know.
Yeah, throwing that ego out the window, going, oh, do you know what I don't know? Or actually, I've not done that before. However, I have done these things, and being relevant and kind of honest. And unfortunately, it tends to be men in this industry that when you meet amazing female founders and you kind of look at the difference between male and female founders, it literally is that stage of, the men will go, oh, I can do that. And actually, the female will probably be more qualified, but they're not as willing in some cases to kind of go, oh, actually, of course I can do that, or I'll justify that pay rise, or of course I've done those things. And that's been a really kind of interesting thing to find out firsthand, even, male and wife kind of couples and co-founders, they'll even be saying that like, oh yeah, I'd have never gone for that promotion. Whereas, they were on the same level. And just because guys are tend to be a little bit more ignorant and arrogant, actually, which is really interesting.
Yeah. when we talk about talent, I mean, like obviously, you work with a number of people, you've got your teams. What kind of people related talent do you look for when it comes to the type of work that you do, which is in social media, broadly speaking?
I think you could break that down in a couple of ways. I think from an organic social media perspective, which is something I've veered away from for certainly the last few years, is I think there's certain people that they just get it. And that might sound quite basic, but they've got, an understanding of the platforms. They've got that tone of voice. They understand almost in a creative way how to communicate something. Whereas, I'd be thinking, right, we've got 140 characters to get this message out. Whereas they'll just have this, kind of snarky tongue-in-cheek, tone of voice, if you like, that really can help transform a brand on social. I think from people that I tend to work with, and in the teams, it's specialists, it's people that have really niched down in their area of expertise. And I certainly like to think and really do believe that I work with some of the best people in the world on their any given channel. And it's amazing to see what good looks like across all the different disciplines. And instead of, whether an agency or a person going, I know that, I can execute. It's so difficult because even, whether you're talking about marketing or even digital marketing or even social media marketing, that industry is so big. There's so many disciplines to know, to understand, changes to algorithms across all of them. It's really, really difficult to be up to date on all of them. And actually, the people that kind of go, actually, this is my lane, I'm going to stay in it, have certainly, done pretty well recently because, when there's major changes, they're up to date on it. Whereas if you're across 10 different disciplines, it's hard to stay, up to date and also execute at a higher level. That's just, which is my 2 cents anyway.
Wonderful. And do you feel that the pandemic was a blessing in disguise for some of the industries to launch their businesses or become even more aware?
I think for some people, yeah, I lost a lot of business straight away just because of the uncertainty, but the amount of online spend that increased, I think it was over 50% year on year. The rise certainly in the UK of more direct to consumer businesses, more e-commerce sales than ever before. I ended up benefiting. So in a totally selfish aspect, yeah, absolutely, some businesses were able to thrive, but a lot of people, individuals and businesses weren't able to operate. And I think that was, a really difficult time mentally and from a business perspective for a lot of people. So it's hard to look back on the pandemic as a positive, but that, some businesses were able to do very well out of that. And where I was placed, I was pretty lucky to be able to help a lot of businesses. And I worked throughout the pandemic and it was good for me, but, surrounded by a lot of friends and family that also really struggled through that time.
Thank you. And what are some of the important topics or trends on your mind these days that you feel would impact businesses, whatever stage they are in, or even other leaders emerging or established, and boards, for example, and their journey and areas that they need to focus on?
Oh, I think it might be a little cliche, and I know over the last 24 months, personal branding has become, at the forefront of conversation. But, I think whether it's a brand, a logo, a personal brand, that public perception of a stakeholder within a business is really important. You don't know how many opportunities you can unlock by, again, being good to people, by having a digital presence, by just reminding people that you're there. Some of those aggregated gains that can happen just by posting on this LinkedIn, just by sharing a story, just by providing some insight. I think that for me is where you start to see real business growth, or even just the fact that you don't realize some of the doors that close when someone's rude to someone or someone has a bad experience. And so they're the things that I think can really move the pendulum. Is that consistency in good hard work tends to pay dividends. You don't see those gains overnight, but over a 1 to 5 year period, doing the little things can really, really add up.
Wonderful. So Tim, what does a day in the life of Tim look like?
Oh, it really depends. Normally it's raining up here in the northwest, so I'd say it's weather dependent. But kind of wake up, check basically all the ad accounts that I'm kind of managing, look at the metrics kind of overnight, make some chops and changes, normally with a kind of coffee. And other than that, it's, normally a midday sort of gym session, look after the dog, and kind of crack on with emails. One of the things I've really enjoyed about, being a business owner is having that flexible schedule. I never wanted every day to be the same. I mean, I do a lot of the same things every day, but just having that kind of malleable schedule, whether it's, calls in the morning, calls in the evening, reporting on that kind of data in different ways. And that for me, that kind of flexibility in every day is different is something that I find very motivating. So hopefully that was a little glimpse. It's, still a lot of screen time, a lot of calls, a lot of podcasts, a little bit of exercise here and there. But yeah, for the most part, it's sat in Ads Manager with some music on and creating ads for lots of different brands.
And tell us a little bit about the interests that you mentioned about football.
Yeah, no, big Liverpool fan.
Okay.
So that's been, an enjoyable year. We'll see how we end up. So yeah, girlfriend hates it, but watch a lot of sport, which, I certainly really enjoy. Watch all sorts. So watching a lot of sport, walking the dog. I pretty boring these days. Have my own kind of little bubble, and enjoy kind of every day as it comes.
Wonderful. So you've achieved a lot, and you continue to do that, Tim. What's your next big business adventure that you envision?
Ooh, very good question. I'm not sure. I think I've never been good at forecasting the future. I think if you'd have told me 5 years ago that this is the position I'd be in, and certainly if you told me 7 years ago that I have a business, I wouldn't have believed you. So, I think for me, it's if I'm able to do more of the same, having that level of financial freedom, for the most part, getting to pick and choose what projects I work on and enjoying the people that I work on those projects with, that is really important. Sometimes it's not the big brand names that are as exciting. It's, that great relationship with a client or a founder that really does kind of motivate me. But, I think more and more there's projects in the Web3 kind of NFT space that I've been watching from the sidelines and trying to accumulate knowledge rather than go all in and say that I'm an expert. So I think that'll be the next big frontier. And, it might not just be an NFT from a pixelated JPEG perspective, but I'm certainly interested to see how blockchain technology really does impact all sorts of commerce, whether that's, ticket sales for gigs and football matches, or, actually how to, seamlessly transfer funds and actually raise capital. That for me is where I see a lot of innovation happening. And so that level of innovation, I think, is really exciting.
Wonderful. Well, we're coming to a close very shortly. Tim, do you have any closing messages or a challenge to other leaders that you want to share?
Ooh, a challenge. You've put me on the spot there. I think, being more positive, I think highlighting other people within our businesses. I think sometimes we forget, how much of a long way that can go just by, smiling at someone, bigging someone up on a LinkedIn post, sending that nice message in a WhatsApp or Slack chat, and just trying to kind of proactively make some of those small, just small bits of praise that in a business can go a long way. I think mentally we've all had a kind of tough or all over the place roller coaster couple of years, and just by doing, being nicer to people can absolutely change a culture within a business. So yeah, that would be my challenge to people is trying to shout out wins more, and actually, even on a selfish perspective, shout out your own wins more, get that out there, and not necessarily show off, but highlight some of the great work that you're doing, because actually, that can often really help generate new business.
Excellent advice from Tim. Thank you very much, Tim, for being with us today and sharing your journey. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for your time.
Okay, folks, thank you very much for listening in, and stay tuned for our next episode with another great leader who will be sharing her journey in the challenging world of regulators and how to navigate around this with the right leadership and capabilities, both in the business, executive world, as well as board level opportunities. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.